Greetings, friends and foes. It's Chris here. It should be no surprise that the overwhelming majority of Americans are sick and tired of the Zionist influence, or occupation rather, of all three branches of our government. If you cannot see that we're occupied, you're not sleeping, you're snoring. We're occupied. Now that the Americans are saying no more to Zionism, this ever evil Zionists have hatched a new plan. A new plot to keep draining America of their wealth and send us into third world poverty. The National Defense Authorization Act is up for renewal, also known as the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. You wouldn't believe how low these deep state Zionists have stooped to keep their greedy hands in the coffers of American taxpayers. A provision in the NDAA in Section 224 intends to marry in some kind of unholy satanic union the U.S. military to the IDF. What it means for Americans is it will be permanently footing the bill for Israel's genocidal, pedo satanic armed forces. This will bring sadistic, unconscionable, and genocidal IDF soldiers into the ranks of our own military, as if them serving in the ICE raids wasn't treasonous enough. Contact your representatives and senators and say, no way, this legislation is days away from being signed into law. We need to act now. Say no to Section 224 in the NDAA. Tell your elected officials that we will not forgive any level of sedition and treason this high. No matter how much AIPAC money they've received, no matter how much filth they've been compromised by, we need our legislators to legislate the will of the American people, not the will of the pedo satanic club of Zionist billionaires. You must contact your politicians today and let them know that we will not stand for this level of treason. At this point, the only people supporting Zionist Greater Israel agenda are the hardcore pedo Satanists and those bribed by the hardcore pedo Satanists or blackmailed by the hardcore pedo Satanists. America needs to contact their legislators and demand that they reject Section 224 from the upcoming NDAA proposal immediately. This is not anti-Semitism or a hatred for the Jewish people, as a majority of the Jewish people also oppose Zionism and their pedo-satanic agenda. I love the Jabethites that have been duped into believing that they are Shemites. Scriptures and DNA testing by Johns Hopkins University have declared that the Palestinians are the true Shemites, while the Europeans descend from Japheth. The scriptures are clear. The autosomal genome DNA testing is clear. The Y DNA chromosome testing is clear. The mitochondrial DNA testing is clear. Zionists are not even Shemites, but rather descend from the line of Japheth. We're being lied to and misled. This needs to be exposed. Thanks for contacting your elected officials to reject Section 224 in the NDAA. We need to pray. I know I'm not the best person for the task of telling my fellow citizens that we need to pray. I'm not very churchy. I'm not very righteous, but no one else is doing it. I know that harming children is an evil sin, and I know that not sticking up for children that are being trafficked and tortured is an evil sin. And I know that the Zionist movement is pedo-satanic. If our Heavenly Father used a donkey to speak to Balaam, I suppose he could use a hard-headed mule like myself to say something that nobody else is saying. We need to pray, myself included. We're up against some very dark, evil, hardcore, baby-eating, pedo-satanic psychopaths. We need to pray like this. By the power and the authority of the blood of Messiah, I bind these demonic forces at work in our government. I bind the schemes of Congress. I bind the schemes of the Senate. I bind the schemes of the executive branch. And I bind the demonic Zionists that have held our legislators bribed and blackmailed. I bind any attempt to bury the Epstein files. I call in justice for the pedophile Satanists that committed these atrocities. I call in vindication and healing for the many victims by the power and the authority of the blood of Messiah. Pray like that, please. It's our only chance. We Christian believers have to come together and unite in this heartfelt petition to our Heavenly Father through the shed blood of His only begotten Son, and beg for divine intervention in this horrific situation this nation is in. Contact your elected officials and contact your Heavenly Father and plead for a miraculous intervention and a binding of these demonic forces that have captured our government.